Hello and welcome to the New Persian Times, a platform dedicated to all things Iran. I am your host, Andy Alem, but my friends all call me Ahin. My guest for the 8th episode of this podcast is a Persian British social media influencer by the name of Younes Sadaghiani. A recent video went viral on his Instagram, which was in response to a group of Islamic protesters advocating for Sharia law in the streets of the UK. The video garnered over 4 million views and 40,000 followers. I reshared his video thinking he was Arabic. However, to my surprise, he responded in my DMs saying that he was Persian. After combing through some of his content, I felt that we were aligned on some of the broader issues faced today. So naturally, I invited him on my podcast to dive deeper on the complexities that is Iran. Full disclaimer, all commentary on this platform is completely of the opinion of my own and that of my guests. The sole purpose of this platform is to provide a healthy space where ideas can be articulated without judgment and with the utmost consideration of free speech. We may not all agree, but at least the space is dedicated where we can have a healthy conversation. So with that, I hope you enjoy this episode.
So my question to these people is, why did you leave your country to come to the UK if Sharia law is so good? Why did you leave Afghanistan? Why did you leave Pakistan? Why did you leave Sudan? Or wherever you came from for you to come to the UK to shout Sharia for UK? If Sharia law is so good, and you're so dumb, you don't realize the reason why your parents, your grandparents, or yourself left your country is because of Sharia law. Name me one country that employs Sharia law that's an advanced country. And you can't use Dubai or Qatar as an excuse because they don't follow Sharia law. I was born and bred in an Islamic country, and the reason why I'm in the UK is because I don't want Sharia law. So if you think Sharia law is good, fuck off back to your country. So I started posting videos around September last year, and the 40,000, you'd be surprised. I got from pretty much 20K in like a week. So I was on 20K before, and I just literally doubled my following in a week ever since that video went viral. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's exponential growth. You just need 1 or 2 viral videos, and then all of a sudden your account blows up.
Right.
And yeah, that's the thing. But at the same time, you have to learn how to ride the wave of the algorithm. Once you have one viral video, it's not enough for you just to have that one viral video. You have to keep making videos about the same thing over and over, and then you get known for that thing, and then people keep watching your videos, and then they end up following you.
Right.
But yeah, so I would advise maybe 1 or 2 videos per day. I haven't uploaded for 2 days now, but then it's because I uploaded so much, like 10 days. I just thought, let me just give it a break for 1 or 2 days, just for people just to digest what I said and have a chance to watch everything. And then again, I uploaded another video today, and yeah, just gonna do 1 video per day. But at the same time, I don't want to be known for this guy that bashes Islam all the time.
Right.
So I think I've said everything I need to say about Islam. Like, I'm done with it. دیگه شستمش گذاشتمش کنار. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that Islam doesn't have some parts that is right. Because, you know, my latest video, if you saw it, it was about spirituality.
I did.
And it's to do with like, oh, look, all religions have got it right somehow, but they are just a historical perspective on God, you know? They are not the be-all or end-all, or like, oh, we have to follow every single word in the Quran and we have to kill for it. No, spirituality is just your own personal relation with God, and that's it. You know, you don't have to kill for it. You don't have to take things literally. You can appreciate the fact that religion is just a perspective. But a smart person has their own perspective on God. You know, you don't need a book telling you. You know, but all I say is understand things metaphorically. But then once you come to the street and shout Sharia for UK, then
You've been brainwashed, and you're not spiritual at all.
No, you're not. And in fact, you're actually at the behest of the pawns of the people who are trying to like pull the puppet strings, you know. And you know, and speaking of Instagram and your account, we just found out today that you're in Instagram jail. So, do you think the video that you posted just today had anything to do with it, or was it that viral video? Where people, do you think people were like reporting your account?
I don't know. I think it said something. It was something to do with the comments. I was like replying to people, and now Instagram is so PC that you can't use swear words in your comments, and they can get taken out of context.
Right.
So I think and I've realized that, you know, once you reach a certain level, you don't even need to reply to people's comments. Because as I was going viral, I was like liking people's comments, replying to people that have misunderstood. But now I'm realizing I don't have to reply to anyone. They can leave their comment there, they can let it be, and I don't have to reply in any way, shape, or form. And it's funny because I had a conversation with two different people, and funnily enough, they're both Iranian. And what they were like big haters, man. They were just leaving like nasty comments on the video.
Yeah, they were hating you.
No, just two of them. Most of them are lovely. So most of them, I received hundreds of messages from Iranians saying, we love your work, this and that. But then there was like these two, one of them was from a fake account. And then I realized it's an Iranian woman. And then another one was a guy that was leaving like nasty comments. And I go into a dialogue with them in the messages. And then funnily enough, I wouldn't say friends, but they're not haters anymore. And they rather like me, and they removed all their own comments. It's because fundamentally, when I spoke about Islam, a lot of people got offended. And it's because they're not rational people. If you say something bad about Islam or Muhammad, all of a sudden they're like, no, you can't say that. And because they're not rational, I was like, dude, I'm not attacking your religion. I'm just saying facts that are to do with your religion. And I'm a deeply spiritual person myself. Same. I'm not saying your religion is bad. You know, but I'm saying your religion shouldn't mix with politics. But then the thing is, they wouldn't even watch my entire video. They would watch the first 10, 15, 20 seconds, and they would jump into conclusions, you know? And this is some problem I have with the social media
landscape
mentality, you know? Yeah. People don't even watch your videos. They watch the first 5, 10, 20 seconds, and then they jump into conclusions. And, you know, I personally like you, long format things where people speak for 3 hours. And I used to do a lot of videos that were very long format videos, like 15, 20 minutes, where I used to explain everything. And I realized they're not going viral. And I was like, you know what? I have to get with the times. So I started producing 90-second videos. And obviously, it's a double whammy because it's not a double whammy, it's a double-edged sword. So on the one side, it can go viral, but then at the same time, you can get taken out of context.
Right.
But then I realized, but I'm proud that I've done all the long format videos.
No, you definitely caught attention. You caught waves, and I appreciate the time. You know, and I'm really glad. I hope a friendship blossoms out of this because I see a lot of myself. I see a lot of myself in you. Like it seems we're very aligned in that regard. And,
yeah.
And you know, it's very interesting seeing how the landscape of from geopolitics to psychology to religion, spirituality, the tectonic plates of every dimension is moving in constant motion. And I think anyone who's spiritually aligned already can see that coming. And you know, it's really more or less about adapting to the changes of this landscape. And being Iranian in the diaspora, I feel like if there's anyone that could criticize Islam, it would be us. Yes. I think we have every authority, and we can do it with authority, and we can do it justly because we've seen the negative consequences of totalitarianism that masquerades in the shape of theocracy and theology, and how they brutalize the people. So I actually had this guy slide into my DM reacting to a post that I put about Elon Musk, about saying how dangerous DEI was, and then he was like brushing it off. Oh yeah, like just because he's a rich millionaire, we all have to listen to him. I'm like, no, he's saying the truth. And then
exactly.
He was bashing Trump. He was bashing Musk. He was bashing Reza Pahlavi. He was bashing Manoto because Manoto, I think, have you known that Manoto after 50
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
they're finally they're like closing. They weren't able to sustain itself. So it's sad, you know.
But then this is the thing I heard
he was bashing this stuff. He was bashing pretty much everything that Jordan Peterson talks about. Is that he seemed resentful. He seemed like a hater. Anyone who was, I told him, listen, instead of criticizing and bringing it down, which is such a flaw in our culture, just build something on your own and see how difficult it is and rise above that. It's so easy to sit on, like, you're a spectator in the game, bro. Like, build something and then see if the market catches. I'd love to see you create a media company that connects the diaspora to Iran and make it last for 14 years. And then you're just gonna bash it like that. I mean, whether you
was he Iranian then?
He was Iranian, and he lives in America, and he's like, you can tell he's like a bitter, resentful person.
Yeah, but some of these guys they are with the regime. You never know. There's a lot of spies, and there's a lot of still Jumhuri Islami people in America. So yeah, I felt that as well. Like there's some Iranians and just some people in general. Because I made a video about Elon Musk as well, and I just don't understand how anyone can criticize him. The guy is an absolute genius, and he's changing the world on many fronts. And for someone just to sit there and say, "Oh, he's a billionaire, and he should pay more tax," I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't studied economics, And just because someone is rich, has billions of dollars, it's because he's giving billions of dollars of value to the economy. And his money is just a measurement of his success. And it doesn't even mean he's got billions of dollars in the bank. He's just got billions of dollars in stocks, in assets, things that, it's not liquefied money. So I just, I find it quite funny how people are so resentful, because I tell you a story about myself, because, I went to London School of Economics and I studied politics and international relations.
Oh, nice.
And all my lecturers, they were socialist-minded people. So when I came out of university, I was like a mini socialist. And I would say, yeah, tax the rich. And then as soon as I started working in the economy, and there's also 2 economic laws that I learned, and I'm sure you might know this, it's called the Pareto distribution and the iron law.
Yeah, 80-20 rule, yeah.
Yeah. So in an economy, not just in an economy, in everything,
It's a law of nature.
It's a law of nature, exactly.
It's a law of nature, yeah.
Exactly. You only have a tiny percentage of people have majority of the things. You have a tiny percentage of football players scoring majority of the goals.
20%. 20% dominates or dominates the 80%. And everyone thinks that there needs to be a distribution of wealth. The truth is, you're in the 80%, and what you need to do is climb up to that 20% milestone. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. And this goes, again, all this comes from a lack of knowledge, ignorance, and misguided worldview. And it's funny because Jordan Peterson just came out with a video with Ben Shapiro, which is fascinating. And he talked about how the postmodernists have vilified capitalism in and it's like a meta, it's like a blooming dimensional meta Marxism, where what Marxism used to just vilify and put the problem of the world on capitalism. Now it's like capitalism is not even like it's not even about the wealth anymore. It's just about it's such a mind warp. And I don't know if you read the works of Jacques Derrida. I mean, this guy is just completely warped. There's no making sense of what he's saying. And there's no, I mean, we can't vilify people. We have to be able to reward good work. How do you measure success? This is all a psyop to help bring people down. So if you have a God-given talent and your perspective somehow works and it builds a following, it threatens those in with power. So it's
and I think it's a control mechanism, because I don't know if you saw the speech of Javier Milei, the new Argentinian president in the world. Yeah, he's amazing. And he was giving a speech in the World Economic Forum, and he was saying, stop trying to control people, because you're stopping what's actually going to help people prosper. And capitalism and free markets is the best way out of poverty. And an effort to stop that will lead to poverty.
Yeah.
Right. And now we have these globalists that try to, stick their finger in everything and try to make this global war. And we are in a very special time in history where I think there is literally a fight between good and evil. I think one side is going to win and the other side is going to lose. And the one side, there's free markets, there is intellectual people, there is the West or the old school liberals. And then on the other side, we have the communists, the Iranian regime, the bitter people, the people that want to control everything. And I really think this is the new World War III. I don't know if it's going to be militarized or not. I mean, we're on the brink of it now with the whole Israel and Gaza and Iran getting involved in everything.
Yeah.
But this is the battle of this generation. And I think for so many years, the socialists and the social justice warriors have been brainwashing people in the West. And people like Putin and Iran are laughing at us because of these brainwashed people that can't see the difference between a dictatorship regime and saying, oh, there's so much racism in the West. We're so oppressed. Tax the billionaires because, they're so evil. No, the billionaires are not evil. They're the ones that give you your iPhone. Yeah. So I don't know what you're talking about, you know?
And it was... that was one thing that this gentleman in my DM kept like complaining about. He was like practically complaining about the fact that like Elon Musk and his father made his fortune on the backs of slavery. I'm like, dude, as you message me on your iPhone, literally, which was made on, there's slavery everywhere. Life is full of suffering. Life is suffering.
Yes, save the slaves in Africa now. The ones that are building your iPhone are mining for the batteries, for the metals for your batteries they use. So yeah, it's crazy.
I
hypocrisy.
think there's an hypocrisy, and I think there's a lack of acceptance of understanding that there is an inherent suffering to life.
Yeah.
And it's about finding meaning in that suffering. Can you ascend to it? Can you ascend to a higher purpose? And one thing I've realized in our culture is that, and again, one of the many flaws is that anyone who tries to ascend from that suffering, the little minions are very quick to bring them down.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to envy and
jealousy,
the lack of purpose and jealousy that they have. And I always say to these people, instead of hating, try to make something out of yourself. Why are you hating? And it's just
be caught on again.
Be caught on, but they're also, this is the thing, like sometimes it's very good to take a very hard look in the mirror and say to yourself, am I everything that I could be? Could I be better? Do I have any envy in me? Do I have any bitterness in me? Do I have any anger in me? And just dealing with yourself, man, and becoming a better version of yourself. And once you set a goal of becoming a better version of yourself, you don't even have time to care about other people and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because you're so preoccupied with your own improvement and your own life and the things you need to work on that you don't even have time to think about other people.
Exactly.
Let alone comment on them or thing. And you just appreciate. And, there's a little gratitude in order, because earlier I was watching this girl on some podcast and she was saying, oh, men, they're so bad because every time I go in the street, I feel so scared and feel so attacked. And I was thinking to myself, men built the world. 99% of the things you see around you are built by men. 99% of the hard jobs are done by men. 99% of the police force are men. 90% of the military are men. So literally 99% of everything you see is built by men. And yet you have this mentality to complain about men. Like, have some gratitude. And even let's say someone attacks you in the street, the only person that's going to get involved to save you is probably another man.
Is a man. Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned this, because this fourth wave feminist movement, I feel like has hijacked a lot of other real social movements and causes. So, especially with the Iran movement, everyone's jumping to saying that it's a gender apartheid, which you could argue that it is. It definitely is. I mean, the Islamic Republic is brutal in that regard. But I've seen a lot of radical feminists in these protests, and as a photographer, videographer, I saw a myriad of a lot of different faces and a mosaic of our culture in these protests. But the loudest ones were the radical feminists, Marxists, socialists, and they're there's a lot of hate and anger in them. And I realize every time I try to, with the best of intentions, do the right thing and try to become like a force for good in the movement, I was easily vilified and like brushed off, pushed, set aside.
Yeah,
I don't know if
but
if it was the same in the UK, because
no,
that's
it was 100% the same, because there was this
okay.
girl in the Zan Zendegi Azadi movement, and she dressed like a communist. I'm not even joking you. She had this hat. I have a picture of it. I might send it to you.
Sure.
And then I think she was a lesbian. I'm assuming, but she looked like one because she had really short hair. And then she had this cap that she was wearing sideways. So basically, like dressing like old Soviet Union type, yeah. And she was the one that was the loudest on the mic all the time, literally. Every single protest, she was there. And then she was just like quite like standoffish with me. I didn't really have a conversation with her, but she was like, I could feel that she's got resentment towards men. And one of the things I didn't like about the Zan Zendegi Azadi movement is, but okay, Mahsa Amini, she died, cool. But it's not just about her. It's about 44 years of oppression that has been a disease and a virus on the Iranian people. And as a matter of fact, majority of the people that lose their lives are men in these protests. Majority of the people that get hanged are men. But I was happy that I was just making international news. Fine, Mahsa Amini died, and may God bless her, right? And all those people that died. But it wasn't just about that. And I think a lot of people in the West misunderstood that. They thought it was just some movement about some girl dying. And in a way, they were thinking, oh, why are you just complaining about a girl dying? It's not just that one girl. It's the thousands of other men, women, and children that have been killed by this regime for just not either wearing the hijab or just protesting, or, you know, people getting lashed in parties. You know, you can't have a party. And even me, as when I went to school there, and, you know, the brainwashing they give children. Like, I remember, like, when I was in school, and, you know, Dini is basically religious studies, right? And we used to have these psychopaths. And I used to go to a private school, right, in Iran, because I came to the UK when I was 13. And we used to have these psychopaths, and they just talked so much nonsense. Like, one guy used to come up to us when we were like around 12, 13. He's like, oh, if you masturbate, God is going to kill you, and he's going to put your balls on fire, and he's going to chop your dick off, and he's going to hang you. And they say the same things to girls. If you don't wear the hijab, God is going to hang you by your hair, and you're going to burn in hell. And imagine saying that to like a 12-year-old kid, right? And this is the type of things they teach in schools, right? And then no wonder so many people grow up and they end up become Basiji, or they become so mentally ill, because these are the type of things they taught them as a kid. And they're so scared. They're like, and then when you attack Muhammad, they're like, no, you can't attack Muhammad, because they're scared they might go to hell. So they're like, oh, no, we have to challenge this guy because we want to be the good guys in front of God.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all just a mind fuck, fundamentally. So, and it's just, yeah. But I think, you know, 80% of the Iranian people are with us. I really do think that. I think it's just the 20% that are still religious. And, you know, there was a new poll that said more than 60% of Iranians don't identify as Muslim anymore.
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah.
Yeah, Nazar Sanjij. Yeah, so I think fundamentally you want to be whatever religion you want, but don't mix religion with politics. And these guys that are running Iran right now, these are not Iranians. These are Arabs, right? They don't even care about Iran. They don't care about Iran at all. All they care about, they call Jumhuri Islami. Okay? And Jumhuri Islami only thinks about Muslims and Shiites all over the world. And that's why they give money to these terrorist groups in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen. Why? Because most of them are Shiites, and they think about the Muslim Brotherhood, you know, the three H's, the axis of, you know, Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah, right? So they don't care about Iranian people at all. I think fundamentally they would not rest, and they will not leave until they've literally left Iran in ashes. Until someone does something either from the outside or from the inside.
Yeah, the woman I had on my previous podcast was a PhD professor of Middle Eastern Studies at NYU, and she is one of the very few professors who leans more conservative and teaches, educates her students in like the right way when it comes to like the Persian schools. So she explained to me on the last episode where when they came into power, they didn't want the people. It wasn't about millat, it was about ummat. And there was a stark difference between, that was the messaging of the Jumhuriye Islami. It wasn't about like the country, it was about like the theocracy and the religion. So yeah, you bringing that up just reminded me of that. It's interesting.
I think fundamentally what I think about the revolution is that in the 1970s, people were still extremely religious and they were still very khurafati. Yeah. So they believed that Khomeini is coming from God, and they saw his picture in the moon, and everyone believed that because Iranians are very javgir. You know, they hear something and they believe it, you know. And fundamentally, I think what happened is that they were having such a great time in the 1970s because everyone was having so much money. The inflation was at zero for like 10 years in a row. And in the same time, the wages doubled. So imagine the inflation is here, but your wage is double, right?
Right.
And they were having such a great time. And I think they just, you know, there's an expression in Iranian, that they were so happy. They were like, oh, but then imagine if Khomeini comes, then it's going to be paradise because we already having such a good time. So they didn't realize that Shah was the real king and the real Imam Zaman in their head. Because him and his dad transformed Iran. You know, from my dad's side of the family, I have some Gaja blood in me. I don't know if you know this, but you know, the Gaja dynasty that came before Pahlavi. So from my dad's side of the family, because my dad's side of the family is Turk, and we are actually kind of related to Nasruddin Shah and all these people.
Oh, cool.
So my great grandma was, I think, the niece of Nasruddin Shah. So, you know, these cups that they have with the picture of some guy on it, that's Nasruddin Shah. So I'm actually kind of semi-related to him. So my dad and my granddad traveled Europe like 70 years ago, and they went to boarding school, and so did my dad. So, but then they used to come to the UK, and they say, oh, we don't care about the UK, because they offered them British passports. And they said, no, we don't care about this rainy island. So no, in Iran was so advanced that Iranians didn't care about the UK. They said, we don't want to go to that rainy island. The only place they liked was America, New York and California, and maybe France, because France had that class about it. No one liked the British. And I remember this story that my granddad told me, because my other granddad used to work for an American company in electricity, and he said British used to come to Iran to work, right? And every lunchtime, we used to have Qorme Sabzi, and we used to have this and that. And the British used to queue up from 11 a.m. just to get Qorme Sabzi. And we used to say, what is this office food? We used to go and have cello kebab and we used to call them English Gedaha, like the poor English people. So the Iranians didn't care about Europeans. Europeans used to come to Iran to work.
Yeah.
The Italians, the French, the English, people used to order clothes from France that used to come straight to them. And everyone could do it. This is the thing. You could be a secretary somewhere, right? On average wage. And you could still wear the best clothes. And, you know, I remember they're saying people used to work for 6 months and be able to buy a house. Can you imagine? You work for 6 months and you're able to afford a house.
That's how resource rich the land was.
Exactly. And now people can work all their lives and they're never going to be able to afford a house in Iran. They can literally work all their lives and they still can't be able to afford it. So that's the stark contrast we're looking at.
It's really sad. So I have a similar but different perspective on the revolution. I feel like at the time, at the height of usually a civilization, if you look at history, it always collapses right at the very peak of the civilization, and then it falls. So that's it. It happened with the Romans. It happened with ancient Persians. It always, when society reaches its pinnacle, it always immediately drops. So I think the stoicism that Khomeini presented himself out to be, because he seemed like a humble man, he almost felt like a spiritual leader in a land where everyone was really enamored by success, materialistic possessions, growth,
Mm,
prosperity.
mm, mm,
It's very difficult in the face of all of that, the beautiful mosaic of wealth that
mm.
it provides. It's very difficult to be humble. And I think
Yeah.
when you humble yourself to I guess to that sort of stuff, there's something alluring about that for people who can't accumulate their wealth for themselves. So it's
Mm,
it's not it's no surprise where you have a lot of the impoverished community allured by someone like Khomeini as a figure. Um,
mm,
so and to have someone challenge the king, because I don't think our parents ever imagined that the Shah would ever be able to be toppled down.
mm,
But those who understand power knows that there's strength in numbers. So
mhm,
they put their bet and their chips behind someone like Khomeini and
mm.
like, listen, follow him.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
but fundamentally, I think the Iranian Revolution was based on just the price of oil because the Shah increased the price of oil from $4 a barrel to $40 a barrel.
mm.
And that really hurt the British and the Americans
Oh
because the
yeah.
world used to run on oil in the 1970s. And if you remember, there was a fuel crisis in America in the
Yeah,
1970s
yeah.
and especially in the UK and Western Europe. So obviously, American leaders and the British couldn't take that. So they thought, what do we do to topple this guy off? Because the Shah was very arrogant towards it and saying, no, we want to be independent. We don't want the West to be our grandfather anymore. So what do? They go and find a guy like Khomeini that is against the Shah, that is also an Islamic cleric. But also, let's not forget, they were very smart about it because they knew that Shah had made Iran very liberal. Women could wear whatever they wanted. There was nightclubs, there was bars, there was even, films with sex scenes on the TV.
Yeah.
So they knew that
alcohol in movies, yeah.
alcohol in movies, yeah. And they knew that angered a lot of religious-minded people within Iran. So they were like, what do we do? Let's use a figure like Khomeini, an Islamic cleric that is anti-Shah, and we're going to give him money and we're going to sponsor him and we're going to use him as basically a chess move to topple him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then what does Khomeini do? So Khomeini, if you watch his interviews like a month before the revolution, he's saying, no, we don't have any problem with the West. The West is good. No, everything's going to remain the same. Everything's going to be open. No, Islam is religion of peace. And no, everything's going to remain as it is. We're going to give free housing to people. We're going to bring oil and put it on your table and this and that. And then after 2 weeks, it took only 2 weeks, Khomeini backstabbed the West. So he used their money and their resources to get into power. But then after 2 weeks, he backstabbed them. He went and, stormed the embassy, the US embassy, took hostages. And then America was like, what have we done?
Yeah.
For all these years, we've been sponsoring a terrorist, and now he's got into power. He's backstabbed us, he's taken hostages, and that's what led to the Iran-Iraq war for 8 years, which nobody won. It literally was a waste of time.
So just to backtrack. So when America tried to psyop the Iranian people with backing Khomeini, apparently there was a recent video that came out that apparently the Russians were already in Iran before the Americans were able to sponsor Khomeini. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
So the Russians were already there because all of this was supposed to be like the Cold War of combating Marxism and communism. But the Russians already were in Iran before, right after, So Iran being the way that they are, they took American resources, and yet they were pretty much leaned on the side of Russians anyway. So and then
fundamentally, I think that Iran is just geopolitically very unlucky. In terms of geopolitics.
And also what you mentioned, this was also a CIA case study of the blowback. That's when they realized, okay, this is an incorrect move. And there was a whole case study about there was a whole case study on this, and they coined the term blowback. Anytime these economic hitmen go into foreign countries because they're worried about this type of stuff. But
then this goes back to our conversation because of envious people. the Iranian revolution wasn't just an Islamic revolution. It was a joint revolution between the Marxists and the religious sect. So the left-leaning people and the religious people, so the communists, the Marxists, and the Islamic, they joined forces to make the revolution happen. But then what happened? Once the revolution happened, by barbarism and literally, so the Islamists got into power, and then literally they killed all the Marxists.
Yeah.
So anyone after the revolution that was a Marxist or even had Marxist books in their homes, they used to get them and throw them in prison and kill them or hang them. So you can see these guys, they don't have mercy on anyone. So they literally use people. They use the Americans, they use the Marxists, they will use anyone to get into power. Once they get into power, they kill everyone off. And that's what Khamenei is done. You know, everyone that's a challenger to him, Rafsanjani, all these other guys that were a challenger to him, he killed all of them and made it look like an accident.
The good old bait and switch move. They bait you.
Exactly.
Like, oh yeah, we're on the same side, my friend. And all of a sudden, when you're looking that way, boom. This is a straight up mafia move, man. This is it goes to what you were saying. By the way, this free trial time limit, it's going to end in 1 minute. So as soon as this call ends, I'm going to send you another link.
Okay, cool. Sure. Finish recording though. So
it's still recording.
Okay.
So one thing I wanted to say is that what you were mentioning is that truly we're living in a time where I think people have awakened to the realities of a lot of, because we're privy to history. We have history to look at, and anyone who's some degree of spiritually enlightened, I don't know if I'm even saying that correctly, but if you are an individual who's spiritually enlightened, you're seeing it with a clarity, you know, everything with a lens of clarity, and intentions matter. So much lies, treachery, and I just think this year, 2024, is going to be the year of truth. We can't be in the shadows anymore. Everything needs to be discussed in the light, and it's time for everything to shift. You know, normally we would have a conversation like this in the privacy of our own homes, but I think it speaks to our characters and our spirits that we are soldiers in this war of good and evil. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and I think that's it's really, really important to have these conversations, because Iran, the events of 1979 and everything after that, it was so impactful. It changed the landscape of the way the world is.
Yeah.
So you have
changed the whole region.
It changed everything. All right,
so I was thinking the future of Iran, because fundamentally I think we're on a brink of World War III now, because I don't know if you're following the news. I feel 5 Sepahi guys died again, and they retaliated by killing 3 American soldiers.
Yeah.
And Trump said we're on the brink of World War III, because on one side we have Russia invading Ukraine, then we have Iran, and then we have China that might invade Taiwan. And you know, the whole Israel-Palestine thing was a brilliant chess move by Iran, because they didn't want peace in the Middle East. So what do? They go and sponsor Hamas to do an attack on Israel, for Israel to then retaliate for the whole peace process and Abraham Accords, you know. But then, to be honest with you, Mohammed bin Salman has said, no, Abraham Accords is still on the table, which is good. I really like Mohammed bin Salman.
Me too. He reminds me so much of the Shah trying to modernize Iran. So I really hope.
Exactly. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, a lot of my videos are about Islam, but, you know, the leader of Saudi Arabia, which is the home of Islam, is saying we're not going to follow Sharia law and we're not going to follow Islam. You know, they legalized alcohol again after 72 years, and they're saying no, we don't want azan every 5 times a day, but even if they do, it's like 1/3 of the volume. Women couldn't drive until 2018 in Saudi Arabia. So he's making all these changes. So the leader of Saudi Arabia, which is the home of Islam, has realized that Islam and Sharia law doesn't work. And he might not come and say it out directly, but everything he's doing is showing that he's come to this realization. And he said it many times himself. He says, we don't want to live in 1,400 years ago. We need to bring Saudi Arabia to the 21st century. And he's absolutely right.
Yeah, 100%. I just really hope he learns the lessons from what happened with Iran, so he can put these religious clerics and these Marxists at bay. It's really unfortunate because you have a big youth they're starving for freedom and prosperity and to be able to make a living, and all of this comes from the top down, and it's really sad what Iran has become, because I think if you go to Dubai, Iranians are considered like third-class citizens. Unfortunately, we're not exactly in the best spot. This is where we are. This is where we are. So I think one of the best ways to move forward is to orient ourselves on where we are and understand the landscape so we can put our best foot forward in the right direction. So I guess my question to you would be like, where do you think we are? Because I think we have to agree on where we are, right? We know that we're stuck. We can't go back. You're in the UK, I'm in the US, but I have my own opinion about this, but I'm curious to hear yours. And where do you think the best step forward would be?
Well, we are ranked 115th in the world, if you just want to put it into statistics, which is such a shame for a country that has the second highest oil reserves and the second highest gas reserves. There was a study done by an Australian university that said in normal conditions, Iran should have been in the top 5 powers in the world. In normal conditions, not even exceptional. So in an exceptional position, Iran could have competed with US and China as being one of the biggest economies in the world, right? So in a normal position, we could have been 5th, but now we're 115th. So what can we do to change? And look, I've thought about this a lot, and this might sound controversial or brash or whatever, but I don't care. I'm going to speak my mind. In order for Iran to change, some of the heads of state have to be assassinated and killed. I don't see any other way, right? These guys are not going to leave Iran. They don't care about Iran. They don't care about the people of Iran. They would even nuke Iran if they have to. As long as it means they stay in power, they will do whatever it takes in their power to stay in Iran. They don't care, right? So we need a leader like Trump that killed Soleimani, because when he killed Soleimani, the regime was crumbling because they didn't know what to do, right? And they were in shock, and they rocketed down a passenger airplane thinking it's an American spy plane. So in order for regime change, we need, I don't mean the war, we need a leader like Trump that will assassinate and kill heads of state. These are people, heads of Sepah, heads of Basij, maybe even Khamenei himself, people around him, and then combine that with external sanctions on, military capabilities, on nuclear power, and helping Iranians through rhetoric to have another protest like the ones we saw last year. And we need a combination of these three for regime change. We need a kind of a Cold War, but not necessarily a Cold War. A warm war, but only for the heads of state. So to this day, I don't understand why they haven't rocketed down the nuclear capabilities of Iran. They can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know there's international law and all these other bullshit that we have with the United Nations, that, you cannot assassinate heads of state and you cannot do this. But sometimes I'm watching Namaz Jom'eh with Khamenei and all these guys there, and I'm thinking, what's stopping America to throw a rocket right in that middle?
It's so funny you say that. I think about that all the time. You got all, I mean, you look at these faces, they're all together in this one room. All you need is one drone just to wipe, and all your problems will be solved. And what's stopping them from doing that? And I have a theory. I think that Western intelligence and all these agencies have been compromised. I think they're people that have the tentacles and the hydra of whatever the Islamic Republic has infiltrated CIA. They have infiltrated FBI, the media. They had their hands in all this stuff to counterbalance, I guess, the powers and influences of the West, for them to, prevent such a thing from happening.
Yeah, but even if they try to do that, if you're a real leader, then you see right through it. So say, well, what's stopping us to do that? And even if someone advises you against you, you're saying, no, I don't agree with you. Sorry, boom. So I don't know. But another thing is that there's two other possible explanations. One explanation is that America and the West are scared that, they don't want another ISIS, because look what happened to Iraq, and when they invaded Iraq, what happened, right?
Power back.
And look what happened to Afghanistan. And they're saying, look, as much as we hate Iran, they're at least a relatively stable country, right? So if we kill all these heads of state, then what guarantee do we have that we don't have another rebel group like ISIS or someone? But they're mistaken in that, because Iranians are not Arabs and they don't have that in their culture. But a lot of people say, well, if that something like that happens in Iran, then all of a sudden Turks want power, all of a sudden Kurds want power, all of a sudden Pars want power, all of a sudden you have Baluch next to Pakistan want power. So because Iran is made up of like 4 or 5 different sects, you know, and all of a sudden you have all 4 or 5 different groups of people or races, you can say, would want power, and that would completely polarize Iran. So they're probably scared because they do not want another war in the Middle East, and they do not want another unstable country in the Middle East, right? That's one explanation. Another explanation is that, and this is quite a cynical explanation, is that, well, maybe it's not necessarily against the US or UK interest to have a boogeyman in the Middle East. And that boogeyman is Iran. Because what can they do? They can sell weapons to Saudi Arabia and say, oh, you see Iran, they're a threat to you, so buy our weapons. This is 100 billion worth of weapons to you. And all the other countries around that region say, oh, Iran is a threat. Do you want our weapons? Yeah, sure, there you go. So, you know, there is many, and I've heard this argument from everyone. And however, I still disagree, because even if there is a boogeyman, I still think Iran would be a much bigger benefit to the West if it was a liberal, democratic country.
Absolutely.
So I don't buy this all boogeyman nonsense. But at the same time, I feel like that's part of it. They say, well, we can't change it. We might as well make money off them.
Right.
So, you know, it's that. But I still think a powerful, because look, Iran, you know, we have a fuel crisis because of Russia now. Imagine how much of that could have been subsidized to Iran. Say, oh, we can't have Russian gas anymore. Let's just go to Iran. Boom. It's good for us. It's good for them. Right? But then Iran is also under sanctions. So I don't agree with this whole boogeyman theory. I think that a powerful Iran, a democratic Iran, a liberal Iran is good for everyone involved, everyone in the region and even in the West. Because imagine, look, Iran should have been Dubai times 1,000.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Just Kish alone, just, you know, the Kish Island should have been better than that. Yeah? So Iran has great weather. It's got beaches, one in the south, one in the north. It's got mountains for skiing. It's got amazing culture. It's got amazing food. It's got amazing sites. So it could have been an amazing tourist pool. So imagine if Iran was liberalized, how many tourists, how many businesses, how many billionaires would have come there and invested their money. So just because you can spend, you know, sell hundreds of billions of weapons to Saudi Arabia, and they say, oh, well, they need a boogeyman in the Middle East, and that's the reason because they want to say. But I'm saying, dude, you can make trillions of Iran. If Iran was liberal and democratic, and you could work with them, instead of billions, you could be making trillions.
Yeah.
So if you think that if America thinks that way, that, well, we want a boogeyman in the Middle East, they're stupid. Yeah. They really are, because they're literally shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah,
you know.
From a capitalistic perspective, Iran is a gold mine. It would be a rush like in a way that we've never seen before, because you have an entire generation with such potential, and when you unleash that potential, God knows what beauty and what technology could emerge from that. I mean, you could even argue you could take the superconductor chips factories that are in Taiwan and bring them to Iran, and you could increase manufacturing on a scale.
You can make it the Silicon Valley of Middle East, because you know. And look, this is how I always say, and I'm biased, but I feel like Persians have got the best. Look, and by the way, for the audience, my dad. So I have a quarter Turkish and a quarter Pakistani in me, right? So my mom is half Pakistani, my dad's half Turkish. And out of the 3 countries, I prefer Iran. I can't lie. Like, Turkey's got amazing culture and amazing sites and everything, but I'm sure Pakistan and India does as well. But Iran is unmatched.
Yeah.
And I think Persian culture is superior to Arab culture, to Turkish culture, to Indian culture.
It is.
And I just think, imagine, like, if Dubai could be what it is now, imagine if Persia was what it could have been. And this is the thing. Like, let's say if I'm president one day, I would immediately change the name of Iran to Persia.
I love it.
For two reasons. The first reason is that I want to get rid of the burden of the past. because the name Iran went through a lot, right?
Mm.
And you see exactly it agrees.
It's celebrating it. It knows.
Yeah. So, and the second reason is that I think Iran just sounds like another Arab country, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds too similar to Iraq. And when I say to people Persia, they're like, oh yeah, they all of a sudden it gives flashbacks of this amazing empire. But when you say Iran, they're like, oh yeah, Iran, okay. And they immediately think of like a war-torn country.
It is.
So for those two reasons, I would completely change the name.
I agree. You have my vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think, and then also you see, Farsi, it's not actually Farsi, it's Parsi.
Parsi.
Yeah, and I would also like make an amendment in the constitution and say stop using Arabic words, especially use Persian words. Like instead of inshallah, say omidvara.
Omidvara.
You know, instead of like, you know, durud. You know, things like this. And also, I would, because you know, Iranians, they had their own letters. I mean, it's too late to bring that back now. But you know, we used to have khat mikhi, which meant basically with hammer and thing. It looks very similar to Chinese, actually,
right?
If you go and look at old Persian letters. And obviously you can't bring that back now because we had a whole generation, but with time I would try to bring elements of that back, and you know, bring back, and I would separate church from state, obviously, but I would have one, if I had to have a religion for the state, it would be Zarathusht, it wouldn't be Islam. And obviously separate church from state, but Zarathusht would be the official you know, religion that we have our, you know, culture based on. So we have Nowruz, we have Shab Yalda. And if you go and study Zarathusht, it's actually an extremely fun religion. It is extremely fun, like unlike Arabs, where, you know, now for Imam Hussein, we have to, you know, mourn for 40 days out of the year. Zarathusht, every 2 weeks or every single month, there is some celebratory event.
Yeah, it's a celebration of life. It's a
celebration of life. And you know, this idea that, oh, they used to worship fire. No, they never worshipped fire. Fire was a symbol. All these statues was a symbol. And you know, when the Arabs conquered Iran, they, you know, old Persia was like, you know, Rome. And when these Arabs invaded Persia, they destroyed all these statues, they burned libraries. And I'm thinking, they were so stupid. At least if you're going to invade the country, keep the infrastructure, you know? They're so dumb. And they replaced it with mosques. And it's such a shame. And even Khamenei was saying, oh, these ancient things, you know, we have to destroy them because a lot of people were beheaded in front of these statues and they used to worship these statues that have no meaning. No, they never worshipped these statues. These statues were a symbol.
Yeah.
Just like when you go to Rome, you see all these statues.
Agreed.
They are a symbol. No one's worshiping them.
Yeah.
And it's funny because one last thing, I have a lot of rich, powerful friends, and some of them, they work with Jumhuri Islami, and I know for a fact they do. Okay, and it's not, they don't know that I know, but I know. Because they come, and I tell you why I know, because they come to this country, they were born in Iran, and they speak perfect Farsi, and they have this almost Akhundi vibe, you know? But even though they traveled the whole world, they went to Dubai, America, everywhere. And, you know, they come up to me and say, Younes, can you sell us some like really ancient things? You have a lot of connections, can you sell us some ancient things? And I'm like, what ancient things? They're like, oh yeah, this thing is like 4,000 years old. It's from the Hachemanish era. And I'm thinking, how did you get your hands on that? You know, and it's obvious, it's the state stole it, and now they're trying to bring it out of Iran and sell it for millions of dollars. So they're literally selling our history.
Yeah.
Right? They destroyed our history and now they're profiting of it.
Now
so
they're profiting
it just makes you angry. Yeah.
I mean, well, that's what evil does, right? Evil. When the mind and the spirit is moved in very wicked ways, you think of, you know, you're not thinking about the good intentions, about preserving righteous elements of our past and our culture. Your spirit is moved to destroy it. You think inwardly in a selfish way instead of a selfless way. And it's a tragedy. It really is a tragedy when you think about Iran. But my the messaging of what I've created in this platform, even in the name, I think conditioning marketing is extremely powerful and influential. That's why I named this platform the New Persian Times, because I don't want to glorify the past. My eyes are completely focused on the future. And if the future looks a little bleak, you return to the past, but you look at the good parts of the past. And then you learn from the parts that were bad, and then you try to step forward in the right direction. Believe me, I think about these things a lot too. And I think the most important thing we can do is just have these conversations. I think it starts there. It starts with the conversation. It begins with intent, starts with the conversation, and then slowly it turns into action.
Yeah. And it's quite hypocritical, because one of the things that these, Islamic clerics or these, revolutionary people claim that, Shah is just stealing from the country. He's taking all the wealth from himself, He's so greedy. No, he wasn't. He doubled the GDP of a country in 10 years. And people were rich back then. Yeah. And it just shows you it's all a projection, because they themselves are thieves. They think the Shah was a thief as well.
It's called It's a psychological. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's a psychological defense mechanism. So much of the rhetoric of what they put out can easily be dissected from a psychological perspective. This is why I love.
It's all a projection. It's all a projection. They always say, pay attention to the words people use often.
Exactly. Reaction formation is an immature psychological defense mechanism, and a perfect example of that is the politician who advocates against gay rights, but yet he's closet homosexual himself. So literally, that's what they were doing. You're accusing other people of the crimes that you're own committing. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are doing the same thing. They're weaponizing the justice system. They're pointing the finger at Trump, saying, he's weaponizing the justice system to do that, but yet they're guilty of doing that themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Why are you trying to remove him off the ballot if you're not scared of him? And it's just all a hypocrisy, and I just don't understand why. I mean, Trump, I think he's going to win on a landslide, but I still don't understand why people elected Biden in 2020. And I still have my doubts about that whole election and the whole mainstream media that led up to it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so I could tell you something, but I'll have to tell you after we record.
Okay.
I'll tell you something, but it's not, the public isn't ready for it yet.
Okay, cool.
But
it's just crazy how these people are literally have been stealing from Iran for the last 44 years. Yeah. They have no value for Persian life, because they're not even Persian themselves, they're Arabs. Mm-hmm. They are profiting off Iran, they're filling their own pockets, and they're still selling our history.
Yeah.
They're selling our history, and they're doing everything they accuse the Shah of doing. Ahmadinejad, I know a person very close to me that works for the banks in Iran, and you know how much he scammed out of the Iranian government? Have a guess. How much do you think Ahmadinejad scammed?
Probably he was in power for what? How many years? 8 years?
8 years,
8 years. So I guess maybe about, I would say probably in the 100 million mark, like maybe more.
No.
Like 500 million, billion.
Much more. $16 billion he frauded. $16 billion. Can you imagine?
What?
Yeah, so he's one of the richest people on the planet. They call it ikhtilas in Iran. So he frauded $16 billion. And I know that from a very trusted resource that works for some of the banks that manages these people's money. And one of the things he done, he was selling Iranian antiques, but also, when he even started his fraud when he was the mayor. When he was a mayor of Tehran, listen to this, about $100 million just went missing. And nobody knew where it went. Just $100 million just out of Tehran's funds. And nobody knew. And then once he took it to the next level. So $16 billion he frauded. And Khamenei and his son are worth about 70 or 80 billion, both of them. And they all have offshore accounts in Qatar and Dubai. So just makes you think, all these people, they're all billionaires, some of the heads of state of Iran now. And you have all these Aghazadehs that, have some friends, okay? I'm not going to mention who, but I know for a fact.
Yeah,
their dads work for the Sepah, and they're driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and they live in the best houses, and they go all around the world living in the best penthouse suites. And these are just sons of some of the guys that work for SEPA. They're not even the top ranking people, So it's just
Corruption
ironic.
pays off, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So they're literally stealing, and at the same time, people in Iran don't have anything to eat. Some people, most people actually now, according to a latest poll, to a government poll, 60% of the people live under the poverty line. And in unofficial, they're saying up to 90%.
Oh my God, I believe it.
So that's what we call crony capitalism. I agree with that. You shouldn't attack someone like Elon Musk, but you should attack people that are crony capitalists and fraudsters and scammers and people that steal money from the people. These are the people you should go after. So next time you speak to that gentleman that was speaking about Elon Musk, tell him that how much Ahmadinejad stole and how much the officials in Iran are stealing, and the people are, starving.
What it is? Like, they're in the shadows. They don't know about that stuff. It's kind of like in the back of everyone's psyche and in the shadows of everyone's psyche, because Elon is more of like a celebrity figure. He's like an easy target, and that's the thing about people who step into the light. And but when you got people like that level of corruption, I mean, that is just 16 billion. I mean, what are you gonna do with that? Like, you can't. I mean, it's no surprise when the Bible says the meek shall inherit the earth. I mean, this is just next level. I really think we're in a spiritual war right now. We really are in a spiritual war, and everything is slowly unraveling in itself. Oh, God. Jesus.
Yeah, it's crazy. And look at him. He's like a 5'5". I don't want to even disrespect chimpanzees, but he literally looks like an ugly version of a chimpanzee.
Yeah,
5'5", and I can just imagine how he smells. But he's worth $16 billion. So
you would think a $16 billion, well, you could afford an Armani suit or something.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the whole act. And even when you go into power, he's saying, no, I'm so humble. I work for the people. And he used to bring his own food that his wife made him in a Tupperware, and he wouldn't eat the food that they wouldn't. He was like, no, it's okay. That's israf. I don't want to eat your food. It's okay. My wife made me food, and it was all for the cameras, and it was all for manipulation.
Wow. Where is he now? Like, where's he?
I don't know. He's in Iran. And another thing about Ahmadinejad is that he is now the official from the government, the official person that is speaking against Khamenei. And I just find it hilarious, because anyone that speaks against Khamenei goes to jail. But they literally erected him saying, oh, look, no, we have freedom of speech in the country. Look at Ahmadinejad. He's always speaking against Khamenei and always criticizing the government. But he's just part of them. They're just telling them, okay, just say these things so people think we actually have a democracy in Iran. It's just funny.
I mean, so right now Khamenei is nearing the end of his life. I mean, the guy's been dying for like 40 years, right? But what would happen if once he goes? Like what's the next move? Because to me, it's no surprise, and I said this before in a previous podcast. Like, it's no surprise that when Queen Elizabeth passed away, these protests from Massa, people mustered the courage of actually getting up. I think there's a link between that. But what's going to happen when he goes? Do you think that people will run to go to the streets again?
No, he's already trying to replace himself with his son, Mojtaba. Mojtaba Khamenei is in the shadows to be able to replace him. And that's why all these people are, they can't even run for government. Radd Salahiyat, they call him. Rafsanjani died, but Khatami is Radd Salahiyat. Radd Salahiyat means they're not suited to serve in public anymore. And Khamenei obviously decides that, right? Rouhani, all these people that were a threat to him, he's either killed or he's either got rid of them, saying, oh, you cannot be in the government anymore, right? So now he's trying to put his son, Mojtaba. And nobody even knows Mojtaba. He's never been in government. He's just the son of Khamenei. So this is the thing. This is how much of a dictatorship it is. Like kings, dictatorship kings and queens of the past.
Yeah.
They used to just bring their sons. So this government is basically a dictatorship, has taken the leaf out of every single dictatorship there is. So they're fascists, like Hitler. They are, in a way, communistic like Stalin. They are, like Louis VIII. They are, dictatorship type of government where they take money from they tax the people and they spend them all on themselves. So every single dictatorship you look at in the world or in history, they have a bit of it in Jumhuriyet Islami. So I think Khamenei is the dictators of dictators,
Oh yeah.
And he's been, you can just give him credit. He's been studying this stuff, man. He knows how to be a dictator.
Yeah. No.
And literally. But this is the thing. I'm not sure if the regime is going to change while he's still in power, because he's been there for a long time. But I then maybe think his son wouldn't have his brutality or his intelligence or just his influence. You don't know. He's been training under his father for a long time. So, but as I said, these people need to get annihilated and cancelled out. So you either have to kill them or you have to cancel them out somehow. They're not going to leave.
Okay. I just got the notification for the 10-minute mark, because it's every 30 minutes. I really am enjoying this conversation. I could really talk about this shit for like hours. But I want to segue into the influence of Islam and how it's permeated the West in a way. And do you feel like, do people and residents of the UK feel like Islam is a real problem and a real threat to the democracy? And also that bomb threat with Iran International, I mean, that was also a hit by the Islamic Republic. Has that influenced anything? Has the policy changes made against that? Because I know IRGC is still not on the terrorist list. I mean, what could you tell me about like UK landscape of what's going on right now?
Well, I'm really proud that Britain had Brexit. And I think Brexit was an amazing chess move. And the reason is this: immigration, mass immigration. Everyone from Africa, from Eastern Europe, and from the Middle East and Far East, you name it, they were pouring into Western Europe, right? A lot of them Muslim, okay? And what does that lead to? You didn't have, because I grew up in this country and I could see, like, first of all, there was way too many people. Like London was so busy, like the traffic was insane. The tube was filled. And you could see all these, and you could feel like, am I in London? Like you would go in the street and you would see Somalis from Africa, and you would see Arabs and Iraqis and Syrians and Afghanis and Pakistanis and Indians. And you're like, where's all the white people? Or where's the, and they were all wearing the headscarf. And I was thinking, this is not okay. And people might say, oh, this is a racist thing to say. But I don't think so. For a country to thrive, you need healthy immigration, not unhealthy immigration. You can't just take everyone from war-torn countries, third world countries, and bring it to your country and expect them just to adapt and be normal. Because once you bring immigrants from war-torn countries, you can't really lift them up, but they can lift you down. And that's a lesson of life.
Right.
You can't really lift other people up, but they can lift you down. So always be careful who you connect with. And, you either have to go for people that are on the same level as you or slightly above you. Never go for people that are below you. And that rule applies in immigration. I'm more than happy to have immigrants from all over the world, as long as they can contribute something and as long as they believe in the British values.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, similarly, I feel like Iranian. Sorry to interrupt. But I feel like out of all of the immigrants in the diaspora, Iranians, I feel like have assimilated the best in their respective diaspora communities.
They're the second highest earning demographic in America.
Yeah.
After the Jews, Persians are the second highest earning demographic. So. Yeah, Persians have done great. And Persians are always very popular, even in the UK. Everywhere you go, every party you go, every place you go, and you see there's an Iranian guy like there, and he's usually the most popular or the most powerful, or he's got the business. But Iranians, because they integrate so well, sometimes you wouldn't even know that they're Iranians.
Right. Yeah.
But so back to the point. So you see a lot of Muslims coming, and I was thinking, why are we taking these people? Like, why are we taking these people? There's no reason. They're not going to contribute, right? And they all come with this war-torn mentality, with this third world mentality, and some of them end up becoming terrorists. And I always found this staggering, because They come to this country, they go on the welfare program, they get free housing, they get all these things that they don't have in their own country, and they still want to become terrorists. Like, for me, the ungratefulness is just staggering.
Right.
You know? And I was like, I don't want these people here.
Right.
I don't want them, because if I hate a country and if I want Sharia law, go back to the country you came from.
Exactly.
You literally came here either by boat, or even if you came by a plane, you took a lot of hardship or anything, and you still come to this country and you say Sharia for the UK.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand it. And I think the UK government should have been a lot firmer from the beginning to kick these people out. I'm not saying all Muslims, right? But most Muslims that are liberal, they cherry pick the Quran. Let's keep it real.
Yeah.
They cherry pick the Quran, they look at the positives and they ignore the negatives. But real Muslims end up becoming terrorists. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's why there's no country in history or even current day that has followed Islam that has been successful. No country.
Yeah.
And usually it leads to terrorist organizations. ISIS, Boko Haram, Taliban, Iran, you name it. You know? These people think they're following the real Islam. So there's something fundamentally flawed with the ideology. That doesn't mean every Muslim is bad.
Right.
There's a lot of tolerant Muslims. There's a lot of good Muslims. I'm sure there's Muslims that work very hard, but they cherry pick the Quran.
Yeah,
They really do cherry pick it.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And my perspective, and I guess my issue with, and it expands beyond Islam. It could even go into the Jewish and the Catholic, and I just don't understand why they can't check themselves. Where are all, because I know a lot of good Muslims, but I don't know why they lean or they get susceptible to the propaganda of their own cause. It's like bad. It's like where are the good cops that check the bad cops? You know, like me as an Iranian or as a Persian, and I really say this: if I see another Persian or Iranian that's in the wrong, I will challenge them. I will check them, and I have the authority to do that because we're of the same. You know, it would look bad. It doesn't look good for our culture if we don't check ourselves. So I don't understand where are the other Muslims that aren't that, like, they're not checking themselves.
This is the thing. I feel like fundamentally.
Probably we have 2 minutes, by the way.
Yeah. When you bring people from third world countries, they will turn your state into a third world country.
Yeah.
Just to put it very simplistically, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys are Muslims, but also you have to look at the doctrine of Islam and the culture that Islam creates. I don't think the culture that Islam creates is a good culture. It has never been good, ever. In no history. Even the golden age of Islam was the golden age of Islam because Islam mixed with Persian culture.
Yeah. You could argue that we diluted it, but can you elaborate on like what was the give me like one example of what do you think like the cultural references that you think is a negative?
It's just the subjugating of women, the limiting freedom of speech, subjugating women. Islam comes from just to submit, you know. And I'm not racist. I don't see race. I'm colorblind. But one thing I do see is culture, and I don't only have problem with Islamic culture. I feel like there's some countries, and I'm not going to name names, but there's good ideas and bad ideas.
Yeah.
And I think in a thriving society, we need the best ideas from the best cultures all at the same time. And we should speak against those cultures and bad ideas and not let them mix with our society.
Agree. That's great. It's going to end in like 30 seconds. But do you want to continue this for another round, another 30 seconds?
No, I mean, that's it really. I don't really know what else to talk about. All right. Bye.